There is a berry plant that withstands frosts down to -40 degrees Celsius. This incredibly hardy shrub was planted to prevent erosion and reclaim land where nothing else would grow. Sea buckthorn berries contain up to 400 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, which is 7 times more than strawberries. Despite this, it is now considered potentially invasive. Warnings are issued not to plant it near natural areas where it forms dense thickets. Once promoted for soil stabilization and creating shelter belts, today it is a plant of concern. Sea buckthorn thrives in salt, drought, and frost, fixes its own nitrogen, and requires no fertilization. It produces berries rich in rare fatty acids. This extraordinary resilience became the root of its problems. This is the story of a superfruit that we planted and then started to fear. The scientific name for sea buckthorn is Hippophae rhamnoides. The name Hippophae comes from ancient Greek and means shining horse, linked to a legend about horses whose coats shone after eating sea buckthorn leaves. For centuries, sea buckthorn has been valued across Eurasia, from the coasts of Europe to Central Asia, as a source of food and medicine. It was a fundamental element in traditional systems, where berries provided nutrition, oils offered remedies, and the plant itself reclaimed land. In the early 20th century, sea buckthorn arrived in North America, primarily due to its extraordinary hardiness. It was planted where other plants failed, for erosion control, as shelter belts, and in reclamation projects. It was a miracle shrub that performed exactly as promised, thanks to its resistance to cold, drought, salt, and its ability to fix nitrogen. Common sea buckthorn is a deciduous shrub that can sometimes reach the size of a small tree. It is characterized by narrow silvery green leaves and long thorns. Its bright orange berries are densely clustered along the branches and remain on the shrub throughout the winter. It is a dioecious plant, meaning there are separate male and female individuals. Both types are needed for fruiting. Males produce pollen, and females produce berries. In orchards, typically about one male plant is planted for every 6 to 12 females. Sea buckthorn spreads through root suckers, meaning a single plant can quickly develop into dense thickets. This suckering ability makes it extremely effective at stabilizing soil, but it is also the reason some call it an invasive species. Understanding its properties will help explain why sea buckthorn is considered an ancient survival technology, not just an ornamental shrub. One of the key features of sea buckthorn is its ability to fix nitrogen. It forms a symbiotic relationship with Frankia bacteria, which live in nodules on its roots. These bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form usable by the plant. Thanks to this, sea buckthorn doesn't need nitrogen fertilizers because it produces its own. What's more, it enriches the soil around it, benefiting other plants. This is precisely why it was used for land reclamation. Planted on degraded soil, it initiated the renewal process. Another important feature is its exceptional cold hardiness. Sea buckthorn can survive temperatures dropping as low as -40 degrees Celsius, and some varieties even to -43 degrees Celsius. Most fruit crops, such as apple trees, peaches, or cherries, have much lower tolerance limits. Sea buckthorn easily withstands winter. Third, sea buckthorn exhibits high salt tolerance. It thrives in coastal areas, roadsides treated with de-icing salt, and saline soils. Most cultivated plants would perish there. Fourth, it is drought resistant. Once established, it requires very little water. Thanks to its deep roots, it can survive dry summers that would devastate other crops. Fifth, sea buckthorn grows in marginal areas, poor soils, rocky slopes, or sandy dunes, where nothing else wants to grow. It simply establishes itself, spreads, and fruits. These characteristics, which make it resilient and a valuable heritage species, suckering, densification, growth on poor soils, are simultaneously why it is considered invasive. When a plant succeeds without assistance and spreads beyond its designated boundaries, the system considers it a problem. Let's now talk about what's inside sea buckthorn berries. because it's their nutritional value that causes the problem narrative to crumble. Sea buckthorn berries contain about 400 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. For comparison, strawberries have about 59 milligrams per 100 grams, and raw tomatoes a mere 14 milligrams per 100 grams. Even after processing into juice, vitamin C losses are relatively small, ranging from 5 to 11% of the total ascorbic acid content. Concentrate production involves greater losses, around 50%, but even then, the remaining content is competitive compared to the best-known sources of vitamin C. This makes sea buckthorn one of the richest natural sources of this vitamin. However, vitamin C is just the beginning. Sea buckthorn produces two distinct oils. The seed oil is rich in linoleic acid, omega-6, and alpha-linolenic acid, omega-3. Studies indicate that linoleic acid accounts for 33 to 36%, and alpha-linolenic acid for 30 to 36% of all fatty acids in the seed oil. Such a high omega-3 content is rare among berries, which typically consist mainly of sugars and anthocyanins. This unique composition makes sea buckthorn seed oil a valuable dietary component. Sea buckthorn pulp oil is even more remarkable. It contains a high level of palmitoleic acid, an omega-7 fatty acid, which constitutes 32 to 42% of the pulp oil. Omega-7 is rarely found in the plant world. It appears in macadamia nuts, among others. Sea buckthorn produces it in significant quantities. Seeds and pulp have completely different fatty acid profiles. Seeds are omega-3 and omega-6, while pulp is omega-7. This means sea buckthorn can be treated as two functional food products, depending on which part is extracted. Oil content varies. Seeds up to 12.5% and pulp 8 to 12% by weight. This is unusual for a berry, as most fruits are water and carbohydrates. Sea buckthorn is oil and vitamin C encased in a tart skin. The chemical composition adapts to the environment, but the high content of vitamin C, oil, and rare fatty acids remains. If this shrub is so resilient and nutritious, why does it end up on invasive plant lists, and why is it absent from stores? The answer is twofold: biological and economic. Both disqualify it in a system that values control and ease. The biological problem: sea buckthorn does what it was created for, colonizing difficult environments. It spreads through root suckers, forming dense thickets on poor soils, such as dunes, and can displace native vegetation. Invasive plant organizations list it among problematic species. It's a paradox. A plant once promoted for erosion control now causes concern. The characteristics that made it useful, aggressive growth, suckering, and tolerance to poor soils, are the very same that make it a threat in the wrong place. It's not a scientific error, but rather that the plant performed its task too well. When a plant succeeds beyond its designated boundaries, the system reclassifies it. The second problem is economic. Harvesting sea buckthorn is incredibly labor-intensive. It is estimated that 1 acre requires approximately 600 hours of labor. In comparison, mechanized grain harvesting takes a fraction of that time. The berries grow tightly on thorny branches, are delicate, and easily damaged. Manual harvesting is slow, painful, and intensely laborious. Attempts at mechanical harvesting have had limited success. Some growers freeze the branches to shake off the fruit more easily, while others cut entire branches for processing. However, each method has its drawbacks. Fruit quality suffers, and labor costs soar. Yields are about 4 to 5 metric tons per hectare, which is a decent result. But if harvesting is uneconomical, the yield doesn't matter. Additionally, there's the complexity of orchard management. Since sea buckthorn is dioecious, the proportions of male and female plants must be carefully controlled. 1 male to 6 females is recommended, or 7 to 12% pollinating plants. Incorrect proportions negatively impact fruiting. Pruning is difficult due to thorns. The modern food system is not designed for such crops. It is based on uniformity, mechanization, and ease of processing. Sea buckthorn requires manual labor, precise planning, and an acceptance of thorns. This doesn't fit the industrial model. Instead of becoming a staple, sea buckthorn has become a niche market, a specialty crop, a functional food ingredient. It is sold as frozen berries, juice, concentrate, and oil, and used in cosmetics and supplements, but it never entered mainstream agriculture. Despite these challenges, sea buckthorn persists in areas where it thrives. It remains a valued component of shelter belts and conservation plantings. In Canada, it is approved for environmental use and intentionally planted for windbreaks and erosion control. Provinces like Manitoba have developed specialty crop profiles for sea buckthorn, treating it as a functional food with commercial potential. They provide growers with cultivation guidelines, pest management strategies, and market information. Knowledge of sea buckthorn hasn't disappeared. It has adapted. Small-scale growers and foragers still harvest it where it naturally proliferates. Frozen berries are sold at farmers' markets. Juices and syrups are produced in small batches. Seed and pulp oils are pressed for specialty markets. The plant continues to do what it always has, growing where others struggle, providing nutrition in climates where most crops cannot cope. It has simply endured. If you're considering growing sea buckthorn, you need to understand the context. It's not a plant you just put in the ground and forget about. First, check your local guidelines regarding invasive species. In some regions, particularly near sensitive dunes, wetlands, or native grasslands, planting sea buckthorn is discouraged. The risk of forming dense thickets and competing with native species is real. In a controlled environment, an orchard, a hedge, or a managed landscape, the risk is lower, but you still need to control suckers and prevent spread beyond designated boundaries. If you want to try sea buckthorn, the easiest way is with frozen berries, which are great for smoothies. They are tart, almost astringent, but the vitamin C content is undeniable. Juice is another option, though processing slightly reduces vitamin C content. It's important to understand the difference between seed oil and pulp oil. They have different fatty acid profiles and different uses. Seed oil is omega-3 and omega-6, and pulp oil is omega-7. When buying oil, know which one you're choosing and why. Sea buckthorn exists in a gray area. Too difficult for industrial agriculture. Too aggressive in some environmental contexts, yet too useful to completely abandon. It's a plant that the modern system struggles to categorize. So it persists, planted in some places, discouraged in others, harvested by those willing to make the effort, ignored by the rest. It was planted, it worked. Now it's on watch lists not because it failed, but because it succeeded beyond the frameworks created for it. Every person who learns that the thorny roadside shrub produces more vitamin C than strawberries makes sea buckthorn harder to ignore. Every harvester who gathers these bright orange berries in a -40-degree winter is proof that resilience without permission still exists.